Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're good.
Good. All right. Let's call to order at 8:01. And Metro Vancouver Transit Police and the Police Board respects the Indigenous nations within Metro Vancouver and acknowledges all First Nation, Inuit, and for their continued resilience, sustainable stewardship, and as active members of the community for generations to come. We recognize that working within and managing the region's transportation system, we do have a role to play in supporting reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. Welcome, everyone. Of 2024. To see you all. All right. First item up is consent agenda. Does anybody want to pull anything out of consent? George?
D, E, and L.
And L. Okay. Anybody else?
And I'd like to just pull N, which is the 2024 calendar of meetings.
Okay. All right. Great. So let's do a recommendation consent agenda left D, E, L, and N. That everything else, and look at the items removed. Start with you, George D.
Well, just D, it's the year-end complaint statistical report, and maybe Carla is the HR chair because I think this came up in HR. I don't know if you'll be speaking to this later or not. If you are, then we can skip it. But
this is the moving of the items from.
Yeah, the statistics.
the statistical report. It was at the HR committee, I think.
It
does come up.
Anyway, well,
It does come up later.
Yep.
it does.
Not in the, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All I was wondering was, I was just noting in it, it seems that in a positive way, I had made a note saying that times where so many of the policing actions are under intense scrutiny, it'd be interesting to hear the opinion of our chief as to why the trend in this particular situation is downward, because for the full board, because maybe it was discussed at your committee.
Yeah, so service and policy complaints for 2023, we have not had complaints currently, and I think there's a number of different reasons that lend, to that. Certainly, the training that is provided to our members, the systems that we do have in place, in terms of whether it be related to our FMCEWs, RWINs, and different equipment, as well as ensuring our members are aware of trending things that are occurring and updated on policy, as well as ensuring mandated training is occurring, and we're fully accountable to completing that.
Great. Yeah, I think it's important that everybody, the full board, kind of notes the fact that in a time, as I say, where there's a lot of challenges out there in the community around policing and so on, that obviously something's being done right here through training and ongoing coaching. So.
Yeah. All right, and E, the compliments report.
Yeah, it's super minor point, but we were at the Chiefs Community Council the other day, and it was just, there was a lot of talk about safety around the system and the perception of safety, whether it's lighting, I think, that was discussed, or some of the other issues. And I just noticed in one of these things, it was about the dog handlers. It was a transit customer who said, expressed their appreciation and said the officers' presence in the stations and onboard trains brought a sense of calm. Just a question about how operationally, I guess, how that the dog unit is deployed. Is it in places like the exchanges as well as the C-bus terminals, or is it strictly on SkyTrain?
No, they'll be deployed all throughout, and they have kind of a deployment model where they will do 6 stations during the regular shifting, but then they will be on all modes of transportation, including the West Coast Express. C-bus, obviously not as frequently, much smaller to have a dog on there, but certainly in and around the major transit hub, which includes the bus route. So they don't have a specific location each day. They'll discuss it as a unit and how many members are out and what area
but they will go through minimum 6 stations each shift that they have.
Great. I just think, again, listening to the folks on the Chiefs Advisory Council, sometimes maybe we, again, as a board, are doing a lot of the high-level stuff and don't necessarily always think about the impact of something as simple as an officer or a community safety officer or the dog unit being there that gives the sense of safety to the riders. And it's good to hear that, you know, that's something that they're out and about doing. I know our former chief used to call them the exploding dog unit, but it was I think, what's the proper terminology for them?
Single purpose.
Yeah. That's, yeah. Anyway, I wanted to say that because I thought it was good for again, the full board to hear from the community council. They were just talking about the little elements of safety and so on that I think is important for us to consider in all the work that we do.
Yeah, appreciate that, yeah. It is my favorite report of them all. Right, also the BCAPB membership?
Yeah, I think this will probably come up, and Murray's on the line, and I know he's our liaison. If we as a board, I think it would be useful for us to consider the fact that we figured this out, that it was $2.67 a day that it's costing us to be members of the BC Association of Police Boards, which is less than Murray's coffee at Tim Hortons. And, you know, even if we doubled it to $5 a day, a little bit less than double, it's something that we need to consider if we really believe in good governance, if we really believe in the idea that we as a police board are part of a larger organization here in BC, and we need to support that. I know Murray will be speaking to other funding, but I think we need to step up as a board, and the other boards do too. And whatever support Murray needs, I hope that we get that through this particular board in supporting an increase, because I'll note in the next one, we've got a CAPG invoice that is more than double that. And the value we get out of, I think the BC Association of Police Boards is probably more valuable. And I'm hoping that we can have a discussion about how we do that going forward. And I know Murray's on the line, but I, again, just wanted us to kind of focus on that, to say it's really not a lot of money, of $2.67 for us to be part of a bigger organization.
Okay. Yeah. Talk to Murray about that. He does have a update later. Yeah. Great. Okay. And
Great, thank you. On the 2024 board calendar, I do notice that under strategic succession, one of the last meetings is for Thursday, December the 12th. And I thought we had a discussion, I might have missed it, that we were gonna advance that earlier.
Yeah.
December 12th, because of the timing of it.
Yeah.
Plus just the discussion process that needs to be runway for, and
correct, yeah. I think we had one in October and December this year, and we thought do one in October, yeah. So, yeah.
do we have the October date, or is that pending?
It's pending. I
Okay.
have it narrowed down to.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Can I get a motion to accept those? Great. George and Bill. Excellent. All right. Public delegations, anything?
Nothing came up.
Okay. Great. And community safety officer presentation. We're looking forward to it. Have the floor.
Thank you all very much for having us here with you today. It's a real pleasure to come and speak on behalf of the Community Safety Officer Program. My name is Katie Naduki, and I'm the program coordinator and responsible for the Community Safety Officer Program.
I'm Community Safety Officer Radush. I'm part of the first class. So yeah, I'm excited to be here as well. Thanks for having me. Excited to talk about the program.
Okay. Well, the idea of the Community Safety Officer Program was first brought forward in 2018 to explore the advantages of interior policing system to support frontline officers and enhance public safety. In November of 2022, we received approval from the province, which really propelled our project forward. In February of 23, our instructional team was formed, and with the assistance of and support of the Vancouver Police Department and using their previous Special Municipal Constable program, we were able to create a program that would specifically suit the needs of the Metro Vancouver Transit Police and our traveling public. In June of 23, we swore in our first class of Community Safety Officer program, which Kevin was a part of, and they graduated from their training in November of that year, and they are now operational on the road. A short time later, we swore in our second group of 10 officers, and they're currently in their Block 2 training out on getting some experience out on the road. So, and we are currently planning for an additional class sometime this year. So our course consists of two distinct phases. The first one being a 12-week in-class learning experience, where they focus on developing fundamental skills of legal studies, communication techniques, ethics and decision-making, use of force, and basic patrol and investigative type skills. In an effort to capture as many learning styles as possible, we try and deliver these lessons in a variety of ways, being lectures, group discussions and group activities, experiential learning opportunities, and simulation-based training and hands-on techniques. We also utilize subject matter experts to come in and speak with our group, which allows the most up-to-date information being delivered, and we take advantage of our TransLink enterprise partners and actually go to their operations, and it really does create buy-in within the enterprise, where they get to see our new officers and learn a little bit about the program, and they start building those connections with Coast Mountain Bus, West Coast Express, Canada Line, CBus, and CNBC. We utilize a lot of interactive software in our training to make our lessons more engaging. This gaming platform that we are using now creates a lot of group discussions, engagement, and a little bit of competition in our classroom, which we find works pretty well for a bunch of people that want to be officers. But it also allows for us to have free thinking, like brainstorming sessions, question and answers, and it really does promote that group discussion where we dig deeper into these topics that we're discussing. We have a large online component as well. We use the Canadian Police Knowledge Network to house a CSO Learning Hub, which is their one-stop shop for accessing any e-learning and curriculum announcements. The CPKN is also where we house a forum. So the instructors will pose questions to the group, where they'll be asked to reflect on their training and then discuss within their team how these techniques might be applied on the road. We have weekly pulse checks so that the instructors can see, how does the dynamic of the group feeling at this present moment in our training. And lastly, because we are still in a development stage, we have feedback that we ask our CSOs to be part of. And this is just to get feedback on the lessons presented during that week, and we can easily review them and pivot if we notice that there's any instructional gaps happening. So our second portion of our training is our Block 2, which is the practical application out on the road with an experienced officer. So this Block 2 consists of about up to 8 weeks of training, where they're paired up with an officer, and they are exposed to different situations in an effort to build their confidence. They're encouraged to try these techniques out with the assistance of someone being with them, and really it allows them to demonstrate their problem-solving skills, communication skills, apply the legal knowledge that they've they've talked about for the past, 10 or 12 weeks in classroom. And it's really crucial in allowing them to develop their legal knowledge, officer presence, and officer safety. Okay, so a training program is never going to be complete. We're always going to find ways to adapt and change to, the current trends that you were all just discussing. So in order for us to do that, we really had to sit back and analyze our first program, review all the feedback, speak to our Class 1 members that were now out on the road, seeing what they were really experiencing, and then bring that back to the classroom. So through discussions with them, through reviewing their files, and discussing with the instructors, we really sat down and identified some areas where we could improve upon the program for our Class 2. So some of those opportunities were, we needed to lengthen the program. So we realized that Kevin's class had a 10-week in-class structure, and we needed more time to really have those really good group discussions and ensure that what we were trying to teach was coming across. So we lengthened the program by 2 weeks. So we really focused on strengthening our legal studies component. And then, it was our first time, so a lot of these lessons, we had an estimate of how much time it would take. And we found that we were running short, which didn't allow Kevin's group to really practice a lot of the techniques in class. So a lot of our lectures were lengthened significantly, and based on their feedback and hearing what they were actually experiencing out on the road, there was modules that we actually had to create for the second class because it was overlooked in our initial brainstorming session on what we wanted to include. So those types of modules were, we needed a little bit more about CCTV reviewing and canvassing and using those types of tools to assist our patrol members. We needed tourniquet training. That was something that we completely overlooked, and it's a really important thing for our members to have. We also used their feedback to improve our simulation. So we didn't really know what kind of calls our community safety officers would be going to, but thanks to reviewing their reports and their feedback, we're now able to tailor our simulation training to specific calls that we've seen our community safety officers respond to in the past, which is, I think it makes it a little bit more realistic for our new folks going through training. And then we really wanted to focus on interactive learning because, the more people are engaged and focused on the training, the more that they're going to retain. So our next step, so we're going to continue our review of the course and develop and make any revisions that we see necessary. We also want to create a participant manual. So this is something that we haven't had a chance to do yet, and this would really help our officers enhance their learning and assist with their self-study. We're going to develop ongoing training for our existing community safety officers. Currently, right now, we don't have a training system put in place, so we'd really like to look at training opportunities to invest in their skills going forward. We also will be creating a CSO field trainer course, and this will allow our existing field training officers to step into a more leadership role with the new community safety officers coming online, and we'll be turning to our more experienced officers to do this. Not only will that create opportunities for existing CSOs, but it will also alleviate some pressures on our patrol officers who are now kind of taking on that role for us. And lastly, we're looking at developing our own online courses to supplement our in-class sessions. When we use CPCAN, it does come at a bit of a cost, and we can develop these on our own. We'll be more self-sufficient, and it can actually be a fund generator for us if these programs are offered to other police departments. So those are our goals in the next while. Okay, and I'll hand forward to Kevin.
Well, thanks for having me again. So I'm just going to touch on just some things we've been experiencing out there, and so a little bit about me. I've always wanted to go into the law enforcement field. My father's been a police officer for 35 years. My sister's also a police officer, so it's always something I've been interested in. Previous to this, I was actually working in the downtown east side as an outreach worker, which was a great experience. And I wanted to kind of shift into something more law enforcement related. So this program was the right time for me to gain that relevant experience, work with police officers, see the job. So it's been good so far in that sense. The recruitment process for me here was really easy. It was nice. It was smooth. I felt comfortable when I came for my interviews here, and I spoke with senior officers and team officers. They were professional with me, made me feel at home, which is something I value greatly. Family, so that's been really nice. A little bit about the training. So the CSO training was really fun for all the CSOs. Like obviously on the first day we didn't really know each other. By the end of it, we're all we have a group chat. We're all actually really good friends now, which is really nice. We all lean on each other. We have questions to ask. We also had guest speakers from the department come in and kind of talk about their expertise in certain areas of the department, which was super nice. It kind of gave us that chance to see the future possibilities. Like we had K9 come in, we had a crime suppression team, a lot of different people come in and kind of talk to us about the programs here at the department, operations department here at Transit Police, so that was really nice for us. Another thing we did too was we had a lot of external activities, so we went to the Squamish First Nation one day, as well as a class, took one of the Blue Eagle buses, I think, it was really fun. So we learned about obviously the culture and identity of the Squamish First Nation. The Spirit Bath was one of the members there too, which was super nice. So it was really important for us to kind of gather these experiences together, and that's kind of a really good team bonding experience. So we really enjoyed how that was all based on our program. So yeah, and also with our use of force, it was really fun too. We had it was once one week and twice the next. So we'd have a lot of use of force, which actually helps us feel confident in being able to protect ourselves and also our fellow officers if they need so. I think that's helpful, which is really nice. So it's really built a camaraderie between our team, all this training, going out and doing different things. So it's been really nice that way. So now when we're out on the field, we actually, on our own, we have great trust for each other and how we work together, which is really great. One important thing I want to talk about too is when I came here, the first day in the program, we were very welcomed by our staff sergeants of our squad, and as well as the constables. So that's been really nice here. We felt I felt very supported by each constable. So we usually go around stations, do fare checks, we go do visible presence, we go ride the trains. A lot of constables from different areas will text us, say, hey, come do a check with us. Like, hey, come, let's go do a walk around. So it's really nice to have that support from the constable and feel really comfortable here. We have a lot of positive feedback from the public as well. Often they'll come up to us and say, thank you so much for being at the fare gates. I see we obviously hear about the issues with fare gate push-throughs. So that's something as community safety officers we've really taken on is trying to mitigate that and also be around fare gates quite a lot as well. So they come up and they say how excited they are to see us, and how just seeing us makes them feel comfortable. So that's been really nice to hear as well. As community safety officers, it's really great to hear that, and it really solidifies this role we've taken on. So it's really nice to hear. Because basically this program is about obviously providing public safety. So to be here that we're making at least one person feel safer while riding the transit system is a huge win for us, right? And also the transit engagement has been good. So we've also increased further relations with the Canada Line attendants, SkyTrain attendants, bus operators, and transit staff. It's really important for us because we work alongside them. So we've actually gained a lot of relationships with different, SkyTrain attendants. We know them by name now. We'll say hi every time. We'll talk, see how they are. So it's really nice building those and fostering those relationships. We've also worked with transit security on multiple occasions, whether that be fare checks or simply doing safety walkthroughs in Surrey Central. We've conducted checks with them, and it's been really nice to continue building those relationships with each transit entity.
Well, thank you very much for having us. Maybe you have to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Oh, that was great. Thank you. So what does a typical shift look like for you?
Yeah, so basically we'll have our briefing in the morning with our fellow officers and sergeants, and then we'll sometimes go grab a coffee with them, and we'll do little checks. But sometimes we're on the east, so we're not in a specific zone. So what we'll do is we'll go drive to the stations, and we'll get off at Metrotown. We'll do a walk around Metrotown and make sure, because a lot of our stuff in the morning we do a lot of vulnerable people. So often we go out, hand out blankets, we have blankets in our cars, we have socks. So we'll go interact with them, we'll go do walks with Metrotown, and then we'll go to the next station, and we'll basically do station checks. And then if a call arises, we can assist if the members need us. But it's been really nice to and we usually switch our places where we're going, right? So one morning we'll go Metrotown, one we'll go Brentwood, or we'll start in Surrey, right? So that's kind of what and then we kind of do checks and.
Right,
and
station by
others.
station,
Yeah.
right, okay, great. Questions from the board? Go ahead.
Okay, more a comment, but maybe a question for Katie. So first of all, great presentation, Katie and Kevin, thank you so much. Bit of police trivia, I went through the academy with Kevin's dad 35 years ago, before you were born. But really good presentation. I'm a huge fan of the program, and it's great to see the way it's evolved. I love the way that you sort of explained how you had the first class, and then by the second class, it evolved, and you added different things, and it grew, and you've sort of adapted to that, which is fantastic. Really smart to do it that way. You guys are still one of the few in Canada that have like a police agency that has a program like this. So I like when you said like with the CPKN thing that you could potentially even have your own like training, and that's potentially even a revenue generator. So that's pretty exciting to see. Do you have any sense of like where you see this going, like as far as expansion or other duties or extra training or?
My worst problem is that I can't turn my mind off.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of wondering.
So, no, I mean, there's, and sorry, I kind of jumped in on your question there, but yeah, I think it's just really exciting when these guys come back and pop by my office and they're like, oh my gosh, this just happened to me, it'd be great, Tim, right? So like we're really like pulling from their energy and we're taking our cues from them. But yeah, you know what, it would be great to extend our program even more. I see the value of it already. You know, we're only, 2 classes in, and I think we're getting a good rate of return just by, having this small amount of people out there. And, we're starting to see that in the numbers. We're collecting stats from this group and seeing the good work that they're doing out there every day, and the types of files that, they're going to, the types of files that I would have gone to as a police officer that would take me a lot of time, they're able to do that now, and I'm able to go off and do other things. So, yeah, I would love to see this just absolutely explode and see if we can get other jurisdictions on board.
And just one follow-up, would you say like out of the 20 that you have now, like the vast majority want to become regular police officers at some point?
Yeah, so at the start of each class, we obviously introduce ourselves and say, hey, who would you like to be with, in 5 years or so? And yeah. I would say the majority of them want to transition to a full sworn member. We hope that that's with us. But we know that this is their dream. So anything that we can do to make them successful and more, attractive to other recruiting departments, I would consider that a win for us as well.
Thank you.
Carla?
Thanks again. I agree. Great presentations, and I love hearing about it. I love hearing about the education side of it in terms of how you develop your curriculum, the iterative process that you're evaluating it, and you're really sort of checking in with your participants to see, and that's a ongoing continual experience in education where you're always, revising, and so to not think, oh, we didn't get it right, we've got to keep changing it, it's actually, part of the process. So it's exciting for me to hear about that. I'm just interested in that in your class, in terms of what folks are interested in, and I'm wondering about, the extent to which you're finding yourself with agencies, you're working with a lot of vulnerable folks. You are spending more time with them, as you say. So, well, is your sense of the role that you're starting to build that those community partnerships, or is there? Talk a little bit about how you work with other agencies and how your role then is a bit about that community outreach into other services that are available for vulnerable people.
Okay, well, I can talk on the training side of things. So we work really closely with our community engagement team. So we have representatives that, we have our Indigenous liaison officer, our mental health officer. We also have the Shroud who deals with our high-risk youth. And they all have a large portion of this training as well. So for our, mental health awareness, all of our officers receive the provincial mandated CID training, and part of that, we bring a panel of mental health consumers. We make it part of all of our scenarios. And, you know, they do the experiential learning with the Indigenous, local Indigenous in our communities. We have community agencies such as IRL come in and talk about, you know, areas where we could work with them to tackle, you know, kids at risk that we see all the time on the SkyTrain system. So, yeah, we've kind of incorporated that into our program, and hopefully they make those relationships within the training that they can take out onto the road. And I know IRL was always really excited to have these guys come out and help them out.
Yeah, in terms of, so we've been out since October, so we're actually trying to, a lot of the same people ride the system, right?
Yeah.
So we start seeing a lot of the same people, and now we're kind of starting to know their names. So that relationship's actually starting to build as well, so they're trying to, now they see the same person all the time, and I say, yeah, my name's Kevin, what's your name? And it's nice too, like coming from a outreach background, because I'm aware of like where we are and where shelters could be, so I like, hey, are you interested in a shelter? Because I know, so I basically work from Abbotsford to Vancouver, all the way in all the shelters, so that's been nice. We're building relationships with the volunteer people as well, because, you know, you go by the stations and it's 5 a.m. and it's -5, right? So it's obviously a problem we're seeing everywhere right now. So yeah, it's starting to build a little bit more and more, which is good. And I believe we'll continue building as the program goes on. Right?
Right. Bill?
But Maureen, you...
Me first?
Just a quick question. I know we have a lot of very good I know that the program is early. I know we have a lot of new buildings that we work in concert, but you know, generally, has there been an opportunity? Yes, you mentioned to our actions.
It's not something that we bring them out to during our specific training. You know, Kevin can talk about, you know, where they would meet up with RCMP or whatnot. But we actually have a trainer from Ottawa who does our DNA collection and that type of training, National DNA Database. So yeah, they're actually part of our curriculum, which is pretty exciting. So and also we have other guest speakers from GFSU and
so we have a leadership conference here at when we also have guest speakers about, you know, sharing ideas, working together. All of our
any chance we have tip regular program, more than happy.
Great, Bill?
Great. I thank you, Katie, and thank you, Kevin. Kevin, you talked about and I was happy to hear that you created these really positive relationships with all the stakeholders, the public, the constables that's on the field, the transit police, the transit security, and so forth and so forth. Are there any initial learnings that you can take away that you can continue to foster that positive relationship? Because you're early in your journey and the presence of it. So I'm just curious if there's any initial learnings that you can take away that you can continue to foster that relationship with those key stakeholders.
Yeah, I think just being consistent on the transit system, right? A lot of these special attendants and actually timeline attendants work for off, so sometimes they actually interchange on our schedule. So I think continuing to reach out, obviously to transit security too, and to like go do a walk around, right? It's always important when you see them to say hello,
Right.
to continue that ongoing communication, and to let the new class know that's what we do, right? We need to know that this is what we do. We go and do checks every time you see them, you say hello, and you ask them if they want to go do a check, and if they're busy, that's okay. But I just think having the offer out there for time, and being able to continue fostering this relationship is important, and just consistency.
Thank you.
Sean?
Great presentation. Really appreciate the enthusiasm you both and all the hard work that's gone into, you know, 5 slides here. I know there's so much work behind it, so it's really exciting to see that. Kevin, just a question for you, and not to put you on the spot, but I'm curious about how you heard about the program and, hey, this is a new opportunity. How did you hear about applying?
Yeah, I heard rumblings of it.
Okay.
So actually, like my dad used to work there. My sister actually works here now.
Yeah.
She's on leave. But so I kind of heard this program was in the works.
Yeah.
And then it came on the news as well.
Yeah.
So then I kind of got the offer to wait and see if we're going to apply to this.
Yeah.
So that's what I kind of waited for, and it kind of came at the perfect time, because I was supposed to be 2.5 months outreach work, and I was looking for change. So yeah, it kind of came at the perfect time, it's been a blessing.
And maybe just a follow-up question, again, around the recruiting process. You mentioned it was, you felt really welcome to the process. There's lots of opportunities out there in law enforcement. Can you talk a little bit about what's been really exciting, the program for you here?
Yeah, it's been really exciting, like in terms of recruitment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's nice to feel wanted. Like I felt very comfortable when I first applied. Everyone was quite nice. There was everybody didn't feel nervous or anything. Sometimes it used to be nerve-wracking. So yeah, that's what's been a big part of it too for me. It's just like the family atmosphere. I come from a very family-oriented family, so having that effect's really nice as well.
Great.
Yeah, so just a comment, as everyone knows, the overall program since 2022, I mean, it's touched every part of our organization, and there's so many people, some sitting here at the table that have contributed greatly to that, and I just want to kind of recognize those contributions, and specifically, Katie, yourself and your work in moving this program forward, your prior experience, around curriculums, and you've really made this your own, and with the support of others, but impressive to see in an excellent presentation. And Kevin, what Kevin didn't offer today is he was a valedictorian of his class, and again, you've just been such a great ambassador and representative of the program. So thank you both for today and your work.
George?
So, I agree with everybody in terms of the presentation, and as Carla said, the iteration of the training and so on. So I guess I have a question. I actually have three questions. One is the funding that we've got in place, because of the way this thing is kind of morphing and you're learning from it. Do we have adequate funding to be able to complete the program through the period that we've discussed?
Yeah, we've got the funding in place for the 24 COs for the pilot.
Right. And we're okay on that so far. So then that leads to another question, just to wonder about the interagency piece, because the VPD has its CSO program. Is there a connection with training or anything that's done between the VPD and Transit Police?
So we initially used their framework to form our training structure. There does seem to be maybe a little bit of crossover, and we've had conversations with some of their training teams already to see if maybe we can rely on each other, but nothing's been formalized. So, and it would be more specialized training that Vancouver offers rather than stuff that we do.
And then the final question I have is just kind of the board approval going forward with the pilot project when it comes to a conclusion, because there's a term to this. Looking forward, where's the date that we as a board will do an assessment to be able to then make a decision about continuing what was a pilot project to making it into a permanent piece?
Yeah, so in 2024, we'll begin sort of looking at what who we'll use for the evaluation of the project itself. We won't look to implement that until 2025, and the board will be able to provide input, and will be interviewed as well as part of that evaluation process for the program.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's a great program. So everything we can do to make sure that we enhance the effectiveness of it as a board and support it. I think it's important to get to that point where we have to make a decision, because there's going to be financial implications and obviously other operational pieces that are out there. So I think the identification of the date well in advance that allows us to have conversations, with the HR committee and the finance committee and so on is really important.
Good. Final thoughts, questions? Well, thank you. You can tell we're all very excited and about the program, so that's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. All right, over to Chief Officer report.
Yeah, we'll look forward to providing an update today on sort of progressions over the last 2 months since our last board update. And we really tried to focus on our updates in this period on our 3 pillars: cross-regional policing, engaged community partners, and modern policing culture. So we'll be in the operations division, Deputy Anita Ferland will be providing an update and turning it over Deputy Bryce Graham, who will be speaking about our administrative division.
Chief, Board Chair, Board members, the public, thank you. I'll give a try to make a brief operational update, but we do have many units and lots of things going on. You do have the full report that's been provided to you. As the Chief said, we're trying to focus on our pillars. So the first one is on strategic pillar number 1, which is cross-regional policing and basically the joint initiatives and working with our jurisdictional partners. So for our patrol section and training, our patrol members instructed transit security, so they are on personnel upcountry, on legal studies, conflict resolution techniques, online safety, privacy, and social media best practices. They also provided training familiarization to the Surrey Police Service. So really partnering with our agencies and having them have some knowledge of our system is really important to us, so great training there. And in December, we had one of our patrol officers return from a 3-month secondment at Justice Institute in youth support. And since returning, she's been able to utilize these skills to assist with scenario-based training with our community safety officers. So we continue to utilize those skills in further scenarios. So for initiatives and projects, because we just have a very narrow window, there's not as much focus here on the projects that we're usually doing, and we have further ones rolling out in the springtime. But our focus is really on assisting Skytrain and Coast Mountain Bus with some of the inclement weather that we have. Obviously, that creates treacherous road conditions and problems for the travel public who utilize transit. So crowding and being able to ensure that people are able to get to where they need to go. And we were also ready to respond in specific areas for any locations that was crowding or any issues that may have arisen during the job action that we just went through. So thankfully, we've seen that has been concluded, but certainly had an operational plan in place and we're there to support our operational. For this reporting period, we have had 47 mental health interventions and 13 naloxone deployments. And just from a trending standpoint, really naloxone deployments, as I'm sure other jurisdictional police agencies see, it's a consistent trend upwards that we're seeing obviously over the crisis. So our investigation section on move to, first is our general investigations unit. So between September and November 2023, our general investigations unit was investigating 2 separate sex offenses. And through this investigation, they determined that both incidents were linked to the same suspect. So in January, they arrested the suspect, carried out a residential search warrant, and obtained confession, and charges are being recommended. And obviously, sexual offenses on transit is one of our focus areas, so great to see them being forwarded for charges. Our crime suppression team has been very busy. I'll just touch on 2 of their investigations. From November to January this year, a series of cell phone robberies occurred at the Edmonton Skytrain station. So the suspect was using Facebook to lure victims to purchase cell phones, and then when they arrived, the suspect would grab the cell phone and flee on foot. The suspect was identified and arrested by our crime suppression team, including the seizure of crime-related property, and 5 charges of theft under 5,000 are being recommended. So putting an end to that, activity around the North train station. And in November of 2021, the long-term project, our crime suppression team embarked on an extensive drug trafficking investigation after observing the offenses occurring on Skytrain. The investigation into 2 suspects resulted in the seizure of fentanyl pills, cocaine, or cannabis, approximately $20,000 of property believed to be purchased by the related crime. And in December of 2023, Crown approved charges of trafficking and possession for the purpose of trafficking against both these suspects. So Our criminal intelligence unit continues to assist internal units and external partners. For the last reporting period, the criminal intelligence unit has identified 12 suspects of various offenses, including robbery, sex assault, and mention. And our criminal intelligence unit continues to engage with our jurisdictional partners on intelligence sharing, in addition to attending a number of meetings related to youth, public order, organized crime, highway offenders, and CSFU, with these more meetings to name just a few. Our next pillar is engage community partners, so this is the focus of our community engagement team. So during this reporting period, they attended or provided presentations sort of on their education, including to our Coast Mountain Bus Company operators on safety, participating in the Toys for Tots charity drive, engaging with bylaws in several cities to address homeless camps that have untranslated property, and presenting to the community safety officers on several topics, including like outreach and policy. Our Indigenous liaison officer ran the weekly Louisville Cadet sessions in Vancouver and Surrey. He also attended the Vancouver Aboriginal Community Policing Center board meeting, delivered Indigenous focused training to both the new community safety officer class and also new recruits of the Justice and Civic Safety. And our mental health liaison officer presented as well to our CSO, focusing on his role on public transit, attending Vancouver Coastal Health joint meetings and conduct better action plans to relate to offenders on the transit system, and met with Burnaby MLA to address the growing mental health concerns and on public transit. Our explosive job section provided 11 presentations and demonstrations to our new community safety officer classes, transit security, advisory, and hazard line attendants. And the presentations focused on the functions of our police dog service, as well as how to identify and deal with unattended and suspicious packages. Our community safety officer program needs no more introduction. I'm sure you've seen that. But I just want to emphasize the impact that they have had on the system and in relation to working with our sworn officers. We have, even from internally, our members are so happy to have the community safety officers out there. The enhanced visibility on the system, just is a perception and real thing to our transit ridership can't be understated. Just having those extra personnel out there and the relationships they're building with the other operating companies and the transit ridership itself, it is valuable. And as you saw, a great cadre of people, and we are really excited to have them out on the system and excited to have our next classes out as well. Our Operations Communication Center, the communication operator in-house training continues to progress. The next step, which is dispatch training, starts on February 20th, and our graduation ceremony for our dispatchers is scheduled for April 16th, which will coincide with Emergency Services Dispatchers and 911 Awareness Week. And a new how-to field on time, so our record management system was finally approved in 2024, and what this field will allow us to do, and as part of our performance indicators, is to track when transit police becomes the primary on a file that was initially dispatched to one of our jurisdictional police partners. And this is something that we're trying to track, and it's important for our membership as well, to be able to retain some of those more files and investigations that allow us to build those skills. Our targeted mobile enforcement team was involved in 5 joint force operations in December, including the Metro Vancouver Wildlife Precautions campaign, with our members alone taking 30 drivers affected by alcohol or drugs off the roadway. And really proud to say that 3 transit police officers, including 2 of our team med officers, successfully met the qualifications for elective team. And elective team is a BC award that recognizes the officers who take impaired drivers off the road. And each of these officers completed at least 24 immediate roadside operations in 2023. And I want to emphasize a lot of the time that our members are out there, they are doing transit-related enforcement on bus lanes, in and around bus routes for safety of our membership outside of transit stations. So there is always a correlation to transit, but we really take the safety of our traveling public both before, during, and after their trip on transit to make sure that whole experience is a positive one for them. And obviously, a very exciting thing, I'm sure Chief Palmer can speak more to it, is FIFA. And, our engagement with Vancouver and our other partners in that, and the announcement earlier this week that Vancouver will be hosting 7 matches between June 13th to July 7th. So, really exciting for the Metro Vancouver itself, but obviously the Transit Police in Vancouver Police Department. So we'll have 5 early elimination games, 1 round of 32 and 1 round of 15, including at least 2 games that will involve Canada itself. So we will be heavily engaged, as we are already, in terms of budgeting, resourcing, with our partners, and we'll continue to update, and I'm sure we'll have, provide further full details as we get closer to 2026 FIFA. And I'm going to turn it over. That's everything for my operational updates. Unless there's any questions, I will turn it over to Deputy Chief Gray.
Maureen, you have a question?
Just a question with regards to Garrison Vehicle Command setup, and, there's looking at all the national security, in Vancouver and Richmond, and there was an increase in, from 2 to 7 to 2. A lot of workers that are going to come in, and, then recently, when things can be quite rowdy. We're here to work with each other, but it's a big deal, and, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I apologize, for not mentioning, obviously, RCP is a key partner as well in, all the planning, so we've been certainly engaged in all of the, planning.
Any other questions for Anita? All right, over to Bryce.
Thank you very much. I'll try to be brief. I know most of the reports already gone out. If anybody has questions, feel free to ask on anything. Just a quick update to pull it out of the section. So then our IT department can ask for multi-factor authentication for all networks and all our connected devices. So that is now updated completely for us. With HR, we finalized some of our also regular action plans. We've now put that into directly with SCP, and we've given plan sponsors and have deliverables. So that is being started in the process. On the training side, we completed some scenario training with CBC at the end of the fourth quarter of the year. We're trying to do that more of a trend. We're kind of doing, we're working with our enterprise partners on things that is possible, but also specifically with them. So in quarter 4, we did a bunch of scenario training, just leading around classes, and we can management and staff to again continue kind of how that relationship works and some of the specialized work that we do. We also finalized business training that we'll be doing in the first or second quarter of 2024 this year. It's a police services requirement. I know a lot of people are looking at doing that online. Even that kind of a different route. We're working with a bunch of local indigenous groups, and we'll be doing some in-person training out in Langley at a walk cabin. So we'll be looking at the history of colonization for indigenous law enforcement involvement. We'll be looking at understand the significance of First Nation law enforcement, First Valley and cultural systems, and we're learning and doing today. We'll be fully interactive with in person. We'll be bringing in multiple guest speakers. We've been working with our local business groups to kind of build a bit of a presentation that we're continuing to foster. We'll end up doing a bit of a meal and a presentation. So that'll be occurring over multiple times, kind of in quarter 2. We did look at this facility from multiple sites that we will be doing with all our sworn members. And then we will also be looking at seats come available to meet it for our civilian professional staff. And I'll actually extend also to our board members if they're interested. We'll look to show if that's something of interest. It should be very interactive. It should be a very good day. It'll kind of be a lot of fun for us so we can continue to kind of grow our relationships in the future. Just kind of year end for our recruiting. We ended up hiring 43 people last year. That's an extreme high watermark for us. I think we've never done more than 26. Obviously, what's going to do a difference in last year is we had a lot of CSOs that we hired on top. So we have 13 recruits. A lot of that is just because that's the JI, kind of a limiting factor. We had the 21 CSOs. We ended up with 8 experienced contract officers and 1 experienced lateral officer. That's what we get to our 43 number. Our facilities, we finished off all our renovations at the waterfront some office that we've enclosed the space for our volunteers as well as for our sworn members. We've also put up all the safety barriers, so it's a front counter. When we have a volunteer coordinator that's now there, our volunteers, they can be in a safe manner to deal with anybody that's not coming back today. We have Richmond renovations that are going this year, and we're just out for permits on those right now. And when the permits return, somewhere near the end of this month of February, early next month, we'll be breaking ground and starting the renovation there. And for our fleet, we have 15 vehicles, additional expansion approved through capital. So we're not just regular kind of turnover, but we're actually giving everybody expansion approved as well. So that'll give us more vehicles for CSOs as well, and the additional programs that we brought on, as well as expansion as we go down into the Frog.
Questions for Bryce? Sure.
First, actually, I really appreciate the tie back to the strategic pillars of that. That really helps. I have a question about recruiting and maybe as it relates to the CSO program. I kind of heard Katie's comment there around, trying to develop class of CSOs to have successful careers in law enforcement. I'm just curious, maybe even at a high level, is there a plan or what does the plan kind of look like of trying to shape CSOs and building the training model? Like, at what point does that happen?
Yeah, so we're actually in the final stage of development, building that process right now, of how we convert a CSO into a sworn member, and essentially what that looks like. So we're just kind of in the final stages of how we're going to do that transition. We do a lot of work on the front end. We do hire the CSOs who are looking to bunch of expansion of security checks. After a given period of time, some of that stuff kind of will be we're hiring a lot of young members that are in a very life-changing situations. A lot of it has to do, the good thing with the CSOs is it's the longest job we do right now. We really get a chance to kind of go to the CSOs, we really get a chance to understand who we are and what we offer services. I think you hear kind of talk about that earlier, that it's part of a family member, right? And that's where we kind of hope to grow kind of the loyalty and within our own organization. But we will do things like review, where they're at as far as kind of career development and personally, what their work ethic is like, as well as kind of the skills that they bring. So we are kind of fleshing out that process right now, just kind of being able to finalize it.
Just on that point, I mean, I was listening, and I was interested in kind of that point you made about recruitment, sort of CSOs, and the idea that this might be, how we want to recruit new officers. But there is a, intrinsic value of the CSO's, role, and I'm wondering about how that tension within the organization as you think about bringing, officers in, or CSOs, and I would think, and we were talking about the beginning of this role, that it was it's this community safety role that is actually really needed, and we want people to be kind of coming in and committed to that, and they may not be interested, or I don't know. I'm just wondering about that tension and whether you talk about it and how that will work. If it's seen as just the way that we're doing the longest job interview, and these are going to be future police officers, then I'm wondering what the integrity of the role itself, like the philosophy of it, its initial underpinning. So maybe I've mistaken it in terms of how we want to conceive of it, but I'm concerned about it just being a way that we would be thinking to recruit. So,
Yeah, and I think that's been discussed in that concern that it's transitory, right? We bring people into the program and we end up retraining, even we're projecting, into next year, how many do we need to put in our May class that we may lose, to other agencies.
Especially when it's relational, right? The idea is
and there's limitations with the JI, the number, first that are ready, but two that we can, place within the JI. So, discussions continue around that model. Who is our target market? What does that look like? And I think there is a balance between wanting it to be a developmental and an entry point into the organization, and then secondly, are there individuals who perhaps a full-time career in law enforcement may not be their primary goal, and or circumstances arise that the CSO role is one that they enjoy and they want to continue to work and move forward in. And our hope is we do have some of those individuals, so for continuity, it would be a very good thing. So it's as we continue to evolve the program, those discussions continue as well.
It's understandable in that the tensions around recruitment and trying to make sure that we have these great, and it seems completely logical, but there's this fear that I would have that we would lose the really importance of that kind of role, that community safety role, that they play a different role. And we had that kind of feedback, around in policing and for the public, and to have this, our new recruits say, people are coming up to me and talking about how this makes them feel, safer on the system and so, yeah, I think that we have to have this as an ongoing kind of conversation about what does it look like? How do we address that tension? What our organizational needs are around recruitment, and of course this is a great way to do that, but also not to use that program to be sort of that type of center.
And open it, Debbie, she may have comments as well.
Yeah, I think my only comment would be is, as much as, we're getting a lot of people in to say they want to use more police officers, I think it also gives them an opportunity to determine, do they want to be police officers? I think, yes, we're definitely going to have some to transition, and we certainly hope to build that loyalty and that family feel so that they want to transition into a sworn officer with us. But I also think that we will have people that go, you know what, this is a really great job, and I'm community-based and focused, and I'm good doing this. So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword, really. It gives them an opportunity to also determine, working hand in hand with their sworn officers, they see kind of that next level of what a sworn member does, and they may determine that that's not for them, but you know what, if the CSO is somewhere that they want to stay, and we offer like a lifelong career in that, and it certainly would be advantageous to have that continuity. So I think it gives both us and our community safety officers a good opportunity. And if they are going into the sworn cadre, then hopefully they stay with us, and we've already built those relationships with them.
George?
No, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, thanks, George. Thanks, Anita. That was a really good response. And building on what Carla's saying, I think it is such an important aspect of it because the vast majority will want to become regular police officers, but it's so important just for corporate knowledge and that continuity to have some people that do want to look at it as a career path because they maintain that knowledge and they pass it on to the next generation and keep the program running smoothly. Katie, as the NCO, obviously plays a huge role in that, but it's nice to have actual staff members that are doing that all the time. The other piece I would just throw into the mix, and I know it's come up here before, but another benefit of the program is also looking at part-time positions as well, because wearing my day job hat, we've seen a huge benefit in having part-timers as well. So you get university students that are full-time at Douglas or SFU or UBC, whatever, and they're full-time students during the week, but they'll work like 2 days a week. So they'll come out on the weekends. It's a good way to supplement their income as students. Gets their foot in the door, but they can still be full-time students. But it gives you surge capacity as well, because you can call them out on weekends when you generally need more people or for special events. So it's another way to entice people to come in. And then when they graduate from university, some may go full-time CSO or may become full-time police officers. But it's another good option to have in your back pocket.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, part-time has been on the radar for us for a long period of time. Part of that is the issue we face right now is we really have a time period for the pilot. So we really need to get kind of to our 24 for our pilot. That was kind of the issue that was internally, but we already had kind of the part-time discussion. Obviously, a huge benefit there. Thank you for your comments. It's kind of the same thing we recognize, and it's something that we build kind of in the background, ready to launch. We're just really pushing to get our 24 for the pilot.
That's good. Thank you.
George?
So just building again on what Adam said and also Carla, because I agree. I think the nice thing here is we have a bit of a talent pipeline that we can build and utilize going forward. And yes, there are some people that will wish to remain, but it's almost like the academic world where somebody wants to be working in the classroom. They don't want to be the department chair or a dean or something. They want to continue that, which we can provide them, but we can also provide them a vision for the future and something to aspire to. And I think that's really important because we know from everything we've heard over the next few years that war for talent of police officers, we're going to be short. And if we've got our arms around our own members who are the CSOs and giving them the opportunity, that's great for us. It also probably will enhance the policing community, and I'm sure some of your CSOs will move into other areas as well. And I just believe that's a really good thing if we provide them something on the horizon that if they wish to pursue it, that's great. If they want to be a dean, they can do that, but, you know, if they don't, if they want to, they want to stay in the classroom, they can do that too. And I just think it's really something that we have to keep our eye on to make sure that we're appealing to the individuals within the CSO ranks, that there's different streams that they can follow.
Absolutely, yeah. Any other questions?
I have one.
Sure, Bill.
Yeah, thank you, great presentation. I really liked your discussion on the Indigenous training program, and I'm glad you reached out. If there's an opportunity for the board to orient themselves on the Indigenous training, I think that will be an excellent idea. Maybe not the entire program, but certainly one or two of the classes. I've been on 2 other boards, and they actually do have really good Indigenous training, both online and in person, but the in-person one is much more impactful, and I'm not sure what our board is on the level set on the Indigenous training, but I just think that it's be really helpful for the board also, so thank you.
Can pass that to Taryn.
Yeah, and that experiential, kind of learning that's happening, we're really proud, and a lot of work's gone into the development of that program that goes beyond and actually exceeds the expectations of police for the delivery of that mandatory training. So we look forward to your participation.
Other comments, questions? Great, all right. Thanks, Bryce. Thanks, Anita. Appreciate it, and appreciate the written report as well. That's very helpful. All right, so we do have a policy complaint we need to review. Oscar, it's got a legal bend to it about jurisdiction and legal rights to do certain things.
Sure.
Hand it over to Oscar to give
Thank
us a
you.
summary and research summary.
Sure. So you have a copy of the letter from the OPCC. The complaint involves 2 issues. The first is our authority to make arrests under the Motor Vehicle Act, but that's specifically Section 79. And then the second is our jurisdiction outside of the Metro Vancouver Regional District. I want to just make a couple of contextual comments first. It's not unusual for us to sometimes get questions from the public about our authority, and that's it's not unusual because we are a designated policing unit and we are very sort of, at least on the surface, a narrow jurisdiction in terms of transit. And so we do sometimes field those questions. Usually they arise from incidents where we've exercised our authorities and a member of the public is confused about where we get the authority. It may not be right on transit, it may be outside of transit. And so there's some education that we try and provide to clarify our role. In this case, there was no actual incident involving any arrest by any of our members under that particular section of the Motor Vehicle Act. In fact, in looking back, there hasn't been any such arrest that we've made recently. So this complaint is really about whether we could exercise our authority under Section 79 and what happens if we do operate outside of our jurisdiction. And so I would also say that the general public generally isn't aware that, when it comes to enforcement of the different provincial and federal statutes, you're not going to see reference to designated constables as being enforcement officers for the purpose of enforcing those statutes. Typically, you'll see terms like officer, police officer, peace officer, municipal constable, RCMP constable, and you may get law enforcement officer. And so you really have to, and it's usually not defined in those statutes. Like the Motor Vehicle Act doesn't define the term officer, which is used in that particular section. But if you go to the Police Act, which is where our authority and the actual underlying establishment of our department is found, you'll see that there are all those terms set out, and we are included in those, and that's how the province is able to create new units and ensure that they have authorities to enforce the different acts. So in this case, the term officer is being used, which is defined in the Police Act to include designated constables. And so we have the authority to be able to enforce that provision. Again, we haven't actually done that in this case, but we could. Now, the second part of that would be, is this occurring outside of our jurisdiction? And that's a much more challenging question, because it's really not easy to find. And it came up very early on when we were first established, and we were set up by the province, we were given our powers, we were given our area of jurisdiction, which is the Transportation Service Region, and that's defined under the TransLink Act. It includes all the municipalities that are in agreements with TransLink to have transit, and so we can operate within there, but what about outside of that? And we inquired about that, and I do have a letter that we received early on from the province, where we inquired specifically about our members' jurisdiction outside of that. And what that states is that we operate within our jurisdiction, but in exigent circumstances, we can provide police services when an incident is not directly related to the safety or security needs of transit passengers or the public. So you may recall that we've often assisted other police agencies outside of our jurisdiction, there are fires and other emergencies, and so that arises from this authority that we have. There was also a case, I think 15 years ago, where we had a member who made an arrest of a drunk driver and was injured as a result of that. WorkSafe denied the claim, but on the basis of this letter, was able to overturn that, and our member was able to receive benefits. The board acknowledged that that member put themselves on duty, and their actions were covered under WorkSafe. So I would say that, and this isn't it doesn't require an extensive sort of legal analysis. It really just means going to the Police Act, which sets out our authority under 4.1 and all the related sections, to see that we would be able to enforce that section. And if we had to do it, if we did it outside of our jurisdiction area, it would need to be as a result of exigent circumstances being present. Just to highlight that, the Section 79 speaks to arresting without a warrant when someone is a prohibited driver or is not authorized to drive or has left the scene of an accident. So there are some tiebacks to the exigent sort of issue, but our member, if they acted under that section, would have to legally articulate why they made the arrest, the exigent circumstances that existed if it were outside of our region, then we would proceed with sort of a follow-up on that. So those are the sort of findings. Again, no actual case that we're responding to here specifically, or any member that's actually exercised authority under that provision, but the authority does exist.
Okay. Okay, great. So we have, as a board, decision to make. We can request further investigation, studies, things like that. We can dismiss the complaint with reasons as well, or any other action that we deem fit on this complaint. So I'll open up to board. Any comments on this one? Initial thoughts?
I got a few thoughts on this one. So, in this particular instance, we're talking about service or policy complaints. So we're not talking about, as you mentioned, we're not talking about the actions of a specific officer, because that would fall under the public trust provisions of the BC Police Act. So park that to the side. That's not going to be relevant here. But service or policy can apply to anything that relates to service or policy, regardless if there was an actual incident. So this one does raise some interesting legal questions. I accept your analysis, but what I would say as far as the way to handle the complaint, because it does open up a bit of a question about other things like secondments when we're talking about jurisdiction and exigent circumstances, because exigent circumstances in-progress crimes and things like that, I don't think anybody would take any issue with, and that would be covered off. Non-exigent circumstances, for example, if you had a member seconded to somewhere like CFSEU and they were doing a planned search warrant that was not exigent outside of the jurisdiction, that could have legal implications. So, and that could be a possibility because you do have members seconded to a number of different agencies with the RCMP. So my recommendation would be under section 171 sub 1 sub A of the Act to request the chief provide a report back at the next board meeting with full legal analysis, including, once that analysis is done, contacting the complainant, which would be normal protocol, and then the board will look at the report, and if that's accepted, then it will be sent back to the OPCC and also to the complainant.
Okay. Any other comments? George, did you have something?
No, if that's a motion, I second it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, I would agree with that. Okay. So, seconded by Sean. All in favor? Great. All right. Thanks very much. Okay. All right. On to other business. So we have report from finance. Now, Marie, is he wanting to do that, or?
Are you able to hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you, Marie.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to go on video, but I'll speak over the audio system. So the report that's available, the Finance Committee actually hasn't met since the last meeting of the board, but there has been a significant element of business undertaken in the meantime, and that is that the final budget for the Transit Police Service for 2024 was approved by TransLink in December of 2023, and is the reports attached to the agenda. So I think it's largely the same as was discussed by the board prior to its submission to TFML, who acts on behalf of the Transit Police Service in presenting our budget to the TransLink board for approval. And it's a budget that calls for expenditures and operations of $53.25 million. And those expenditures are 16% higher than the budget that was approved for 2023, largely related to increases in sworn members for the purpose of preparing for the Broadway extension to be opened. So it's not the full allotment of sworn members, but there's 10 sworn members that are being approved as part of this budget for hiring during the course of the year. So it's not even a full annualization of those sworn member costs, but a part year cost for 10 sworn members. There's 8 civilian professional positions that are included in the budget, annualizing 12 of the 24 CSO positions that have been approved under previous budgets, but weren't fully their salaries weren't fully covered in the previous budget. Wage and benefit increases for the people that are already employed in the Metro Vancouver Transit Police, and then inflationary increases in products and services that the Metro Vancouver Transit Police purchased from others during the course of the year to undertake its business. This budget doesn't include allocated costs from TransLink, which is a separate budget item and is provided for in the report. You can see that it's actually about a 25% increase in the allocated costs from 2023 to 2024, from $5.6 million to $7 million approximately. And that covers information technology, premises rental, payroll costs, and some human resource costs as well. So in relation to our ability to continue to deliver services, it's been approved, and the context of our delivery of services includes both sworn members and CSOs as part of the delivery mechanism. So with that, I'll just open it for questions, or if any.
Thanks, Murray. Any questions for Murray about budget? All right, great. So we do have a recommendation that we receive the report on 2024-1, the final budget submission, and approve the for final
So
budget.
I'll move that recommendation. I'll move the recommendation.
Bill, second. Great, thanks, Marie. Bill, seconds. Great. Done. Thank you, Marie. Anything else?
No, that's it. There's one comment that I wanted to make in relation to the previous item, the CSO item, that when that program was initially being contemplated and introduced, the objective of the CSO program, as I recall, was that we were basically hiring people that didn't have the same, I guess, full qualifications of a sworn member, but would be able to take on responsibilities that were being undertaken by sworn members, and thereby free up sworn members to undertake activities that were better aligned with their full qualifications as, sworn members. And so one of the conundrums we face as an organization is to figure out how do we ensure that the CSOs, in fact, aren't adding to the service that we deliver as a police service. They are undertaking activities that were part of the service delivery program that were already being undertaken by the Metro Vancouver Transit Police in advance of them being introduced. So I realize it's a 3-year pilot project. If I were betting money on it, I'm betting money that we will continue this on an ongoing basis. And really, one of the things that we need to do as we go, move forward in terms of approving future budgets is recognize that the CSOs have freed up sworn member time, and that those sworn members that have time now freed up by virtue of the CSOs being employed should be now helping us in relation to fulfilling our mandate on the expanded system that is coming about by virtue of the Broadway extension and the Surrey-Langley SkyTrain extension, so that we don't have to be hiring as many sworn members as we would have otherwise anticipated to hire without the CSO program being in place. And I share this simply to say that let's not lose sight of what the target was originally when we introduced the CSO pilot.
Yeah, noted. Thanks, Murray.
You're welcome.
All right, over to governance then, George.
Sure, the minutes are there for circulation and reading, which everyone has had. The only thing that I would say is that your governance committee, in talking about priorities for 2024, has made a commitment to ensure that we go out and do something in the way of a board meeting in a public setting. And we're trying to work through that with Taryn and Stephen, and obviously the chief, and through the board chair. But we're going to do that. We've done a lot of talking. We're now back into a situation where we can make this happen, identify a location, try to ensure that we're not just always meeting here inside a building in New Westminster, and that we engage the public as part of our process. So that will happen. We'll obviously have to poll the board members around appropriate timing and work with the chief on that. But it's not a big ask to be able to go out and do this and engage the community in some sort of different setting. I know that it was done a few years ago with the Mosaic folks. In fact, the Mosaic people were at the Chiefs Community Council the other night, and I think he had indicated it was about 4 years ago maybe that had happened.
At pre-COVID.
So, we can probably try to replicate that into a different situation for us as a board to make sure that we're doing what we say we're going to do, which is be accessible. And that certainly came from the minister's letter as well, about how boards, police boards as a whole, should be more accessible. So we're gonna do that, so you'll see some communication on that upcoming.
Yeah, and Stephen, maybe if I can ask you just to give a brief update. So we've done some work and we'll be presenting the board with various options around some locations.
Yeah, so when we were discussing the committee meeting back in 2019, some of the early conversations were looking at the areas across Metro Vancouver where the majority of transit system resides, and also we're seeing the greatest amount of growth. So no surprise, that was like Vancouver and Surrey. They're the two largest municipalities. The last two community meetings we have full held as a board, last one being not that recent was in 2019, was in Vancouver at Mosaic. So we've been exploring other options with Surrey. Reason being, the idea was maybe a third of community meetings would be held in Vancouver moving forward, a third in Surrey, and then the other third would be split between the other 19 municipalities, just to ensure that every single community that Transit Police serves does see the Transit Police Board being represented. And then I think it's even more pronounced, looking kind of south of the Fraser right now, that's the area that's seen the greatest bounce back after COVID. So actually, when you look at Surrey-Langley, it's actually more ridership now than it was pre-pandemic. When you look north of the Fraser, it's around 80 to 90% in terms of recovery. We've got the dedicated bus lanes being added south of the Fraser. We're doing 5 dedicated enforcement with the Targeted Mobile Enforcement Team with the new dedicated bus lanes. So we're doing some research in, primarily at the moment, Vancouver and Surrey. We started in Surrey, and then we're going to be looking at other areas of Vancouver as well, primarily areas maybe along the Broadway extension, to kind of those communities that are going to be seeing enhanced service. We want to ensure that we have representation. But we do have a number of venues that we have identified in Surrey to bring forward. We're just kind of looking at the costing, when the venues open up. A lot of considerations come down to, there's a lot of venues available, but a lot of them don't open until 9:30. Right. And just knowing the board schedule, we're trying to get in a little bit earlier. And we also want to make sure that whatever location we select, it's proximate to transit. So we're doing kind of a location analysis, how close it is to the closest transit hub. Right. And then how close it is to some of our community partners. So it would be like, I-Rail, Surrey Crime Prevention, the Fleetwood Business Improvement Association, and then working with the neighborhood police officer for that community to drive to ensure we have additional community members out, and that we set up delegations from them in advance. So naturally, we want to have some organic interaction of people coming out to these meetings, or we promote it in advance. But we also want to set up some community presentations that, we know well in advance that they will be attending and that we'll be hearing from that community member.
Yeah, so we'll provide options with floor plans and information about the sites for the board to make a decision on your preferred location.
So we're targeting April or June, most likely?
June is what you're targeting, yeah.
June, okay, great.
That's what we did the Mosaic meeting as well, was in June.
Okay, great.
Could I just make a quick comment?
Sure.
That's great, thanks. I'm glad that's being looked at. Just a thought, with the community meetings, would there be an appetite from the board? Because when we're out in community, whether it's a community center or a different type of institution, starting the board meeting a little bit later than 8, because community members generally are going to want to get up and go to a transit meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? If it was like maybe 10 o'clock or something, that may be more reasonable. So just if there was flexibility on the board's part, get more community members there.
Poll for that as well when we're looking at venue, maybe also poll for, could we switch the time a little bit, shift it, on that particular day.
For logistics, that would be great. When we did Mosaic, we actually started with the in-camera meeting, did the first 2 hours in camera, and then moved public, because as you said, 8 o'clock was going to be too early, but 10 o'clock was more reasonable.
Yeah, that's the option, start later or switch them.
We can alternate them accordingly.
Yeah, that would work too.
Good idea,
Yeah, and then be ready for public at 10 or whatever,
And ideally, with Mosaic, we had 2 rooms. We had a larger room where the public could kind of come and situate themselves and set up while the in-camera meeting was finishing up, and then we had kind of a closed in-camera room as well.
The ideal. Okay, I think we're open to those suggestions, That's great. Thanks, George. Was there anything else you wanted?
Nope, it's all in the minutes. Thanks.
Great, all right. We do have to confirm committee membership for 2024. So for the HR committee, we've got Director Chair of the committee and Directors Palmer as appointees. And then for governance, George as the chair, and then Directors Cook, Dinwiddie, and Levy. For finance, we've got Bill as the chair, and then Murray and George on that committee as well. So any issues with committee membership? I think we've talked about it. All right, so can I get a motion for that? To accept that? George Maureen as a second. All in favor? Great. Thanks very much. All right, we have an update from Murray and Carla about I think it was a course you went to, right?
Indigenous
Yeah.
engagement. Marie, are you on the line still? Do you want me to-
Yep, Marie's still on the line, yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for supporting myself and Maureen to attend. This was a Indigenous engagement training session for 2 days in early December. Canadian Association of Police, Chiefs of Police, as well as the Canadian Professional Knowledge Network, is that the right? I was strong. And it was really interesting in that I was thinking it was going to be kind of like localized, jurisdictional police and transit, and it was national. And so there were people that were at my table that were correctional officers from Prince Edward Island, and so it was really quite an interesting experience to have. Excellent presentations across the board. Opening with Elder Mary Point, who really sort of set the tone for the discussions of the day. There were lots of opportunities to kind of discuss at the table, but there were lots of presentations from local First Nations, but also across Canada on engagement and really the message that we've learned in all of our trainings, as well as relationships are everything. The time that's needed to spend to engage with local Indigenous folks, the presentation that you gave this morning, Bryce, about, the work that we're doing, the training we're doing is so essential. I think the one thing, there were so many different takeaways and whatnot, but there was one presentation on officer exchange, cultural exchange. In Northern Ontario, where urban officers are going to different exchanges with First Nations, Northern Ontario. And just the testimony, the interactions, the learned and lived experience. And so officers are coming back. I see Maureen smiling, so there's probably, it was quite impactful. And, there were knowledge keepers from across the country, a woman from PEI who did, 7 ways of knowing. It was a lot of, it was very worthwhile. So I'm very effusive about it. Kind of training that I think as board members, it's important for us to attend. And it's the conversations often after the presentation that are, so thank you for supporting us and appreciate it.
Right. Marie, did you have any comments? Anything to add?
I think Carla covered it well. The thing that kind of struck me, one of the presentations, I think was called, and I can't remember the exact title, my notes are in Langley and I'm in Winnipeg, but I think it was called 100 Cups of Tea. And the objective of that presentation was to say that sometimes issues around reconciliation and understanding take time to develop. And it isn't going to happen over one cup of tea. It's going to happen over many, many meetings where you develop an understanding of the interests and circumstances that have built the background for what you're facing today. And so I thought that was a really good presentation. The other thing that I noted from the conference was that it was broad participation by a wide variety of agencies looking at reconciliation and dialogue from many different perspectives. And what struck me was the willingness, I guess, of people to talk about historical events and how they've shaped current circumstances, things like residential schools and how policing services have evolved both within the broader communities in Canada, but also on the First Nations lands that are actually different in nature by virtue of how legislation addresses them. So programs that are available broadly across Canada to police services, including both independent and RCMP services, and the kinds of funding that is available to First Nation police services is different because of the legislation that covers the how they're established. And so it struck me that there needs to be, I guess, some dialogue, some discussion, some roundtables around how do we ensure that police services are delivered uniformly across our country, whether it's First Nation lands or otherwise. And I think that was a very important learning for me there, that sometimes, notwithstanding the fact that we think that there's equity, there in fact isn't equity by virtue of just the federal government being responsible for police services on First Nations lands and provincial governments tending to be responsible for police services otherwise. So from my perspective, it was a good conference. I thought that it was well organized, and certainly the presenters had spent time in thinking through the topics about which they were speaking and making presentations that were, very impactful and meaningful. There wasn't a lot of fluff there, is the way I describe it. So from my perspective, it was a good conference, and there are follow-up training sessions being organized that are more granular in nature than what was being presented at this conference in December. So it's something that I think as a board, we should continue to keep our ear to the rail in knowing what's available for training around interactions with our communities, including the First Nations and Indigenous peoples, and will help us be a better board and provide services that are, more refined and precisely targeted to the needs and interests of all the cultures which we serve, including Indigenous peoples.
Yeah. Great. Well, that's worthwhile. Thanks for sharing. All right. Any questions for Carla? All right. Let's move on to the BC APB conference. So this is going to be in Vancouver this year, April 11th and 12th. So it's a good opportunity for boards to get out there. It's local. So I think we're willing to, whoever wants to go can put their name forward. We can work through Taryn to do that. I know I want to attend. I'm sure Murray will be there. So let Carla know if that works for you. Sounds like the first day there's a good agenda. Second day is more discussions, things like that. So, okay. But yeah, I think we can, whoever wants to go, we can.
Can we approve related costs for the board at the BC?
Yeah, let's do that. So
you can just let me know.
Yeah, so let's do that motion. Okay.
I'll move that.
Okay.
Do you want to move it?
Motion.
Do you want to move also a sponsorship amount for the conference, either, like a coffee or a meal amount?
Yeah, I think in the past we've done a coffee break, right? So, I think we can stick with that as well. Objections to that? So second by
Yeah, I think, and I appreciate that Vancouver Police Board is actually hosting this, I think is the way it's termed.
Yeah, Vancouver's hosting it. And I would just say on that note, because it is local and quite often these are in Nelson or on the island, it's a good opportunity for everybody to go if they're available, because it is a local one this year, so.
Yeah.
Is there a participation by a transit police in the sense of a presentation or any aspect that we've been asked as a board through our leadership around some of the topics?
No, the intention is for us to attend, but no, there's been no presentation scheduled.
Okay. I don't know, it doesn't, just the draft agenda seems pretty wide open if they're looking to have something different. Because I went to the one in Surrey a couple of years ago, I didn't go to Nelson, but it's pretty standard fare. I certainly think that transit police would be in a great position to provide new information instead of the same old, mainly because, policing the moving city sort of thing, plus the fact of, I think a lot of boards still don't even know what transit police fully does. And I think proactively, if we could approach them to say if there was an opportunity to do a presentation, if they wanted to find something, it would be great for us as an organization to be front and center.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that works.
I'll just say, I know it's a board thing, it's not so much a VPD thing, but VPD is on the planning committee, so it might be helpful, Suzanne. Kevin Bernardin is on the planning committee for VPD, if somebody wants to reach out to Kevin and toss that out.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. All right.
I'm wondering if it may be appropriate for us to maybe up the amount that we sponsor, because I'm thinking that we're kind of a mid-sized police service, maybe a little larger than mid-sized within the province. Well, we should move our sponsorship up to maybe $850 for a lunch or something, just to represent more the scale of our operation.
Does anybody have objection to that? Okay.
So I'll make that motion, both that we fund members that are interested in attending the conference, and that we provide a sponsorship of $850 for a lunch at the conference.
Okay. second. Maureen, all in favor? Great. Perfect. All right, so next meeting is April 24th, a.m. We'll call it closed at 9:40. Great, everyone.